Well, welcome everybody. We're so glad you could join us here for this Monday Masterclass. This is kind of an interesting one. Scott and I were talking about this. This one is going to be on how to integrate blueprinting with StageGate. And we've scheduled it for now because we thought we would have a white paper published on this glorious subject, right, Scott?
Right.
But we had a little delay. So what we're going to do is in a little bit, I'm going to take you through the draft of the white paper. And maybe, Scott, we can keep track of the folks who came here, and we can send them an email when we do get that white paper finished so they can read it. They'll be the first to see it, the first kids on the block to see the new white paper on StageGate integration. But let me do this. I like to start whenever we can with whatever is in Blue Help. And thankfully, we do have an article in here on StageGate. So we just come here, do a little... there we go, StageGate right off the bat here. So I'm going to click that. But let me also show you just where this thing is at, just so you kind of get a sense for our organization here. These are the main 6 sections we have on blueprinting here. The first one's kind of a catch-all. It's on the Blueprinting Center and a lot about how we fit with other systems. So if somebody asks you about lean or strategy or how it fits with product launch, there's a good chance it's in here. Then we have the software, and then you see us going through the major steps. So it's actually going to be in here. And as we look down the Blueprinting Center and methodology, pretty darn quickly we get into, well, after some of this basic stuff, we get into how does it fit. And the first section we have is on the fit with StageGate. So the first thing, just to help with a little perspective, we have a little article on StageGate benefits and limitations. I call StageGate the Swiss Army knife of innovation because it does so many things. And there you see kind of a short list of all the things it does. Scott, I don't know if we have hardly any clients that don't use StageGate at some level, right?
Right.
It's just, and some of you on the call, I know you've been using it for years and have some very sophisticated processes. And one of you, and you know who you are, is already integrating blueprinting into your StageGate process. At any rate, but here's the thing. It's very easy for a lot of companies to also experience some downsides of the StageGate process. We get into analytical thinking. The brain works in one of 2 ways. Either it's kind of this expansive, what can I do way of thinking, or it's what did I miss? And studies show that given a chance, the analytical, what did I miss, that will take over, kind of a checklist mentality, and a little bit of an internal focus. So sometimes I try to do this kindly. I'll ask a team how many hours they spent talking to colleagues and how many hours to customers. And usually the answer is not terribly satisfying for most people. So anyway, that's just a little bit on StageGate benefits and limitations. Let me go over here and click this. And we had a second article. Now, this is one way you might want to think about where blueprinting fits with StageGate. Some people think about it, well, it goes in the front end. Yeah, that's right. Some people say, oh, it goes before our StageGate. Like, well, okay. Some people, they don't start their StageGate until after they do blueprinting. So those are all viable ways of thinking about it. But another way of thinking about it is this interface. So StageGate really is an interface between the company and the project team. And it helps the team a little bit because it gives them a checklist of things they should be doing. But frankly, it's mostly there to help the company plan resources, plan when products are going to launch, do portfolio analysis, make sure we don't get into liabilities that sink the company. So usually the StageGate is for that purpose. And the team is entering information, not so much to help their project, but more to help the company, which is perfectly appropriate. So what we say is, let's add another interface on top of this between the team and the customers. Let's call that customer insight skills. These would be some examples here that you see. And this is frankly where blueprinting comes in. So blueprinting, think of it as the interface on top of the interface that we call StageGate. And in some ways, the lower interface reduces mistakes, but in some ways, the top interface leads to breakthroughs, right? And so if I'm having a stage gate, review in my company, I would rather not spend as much time talking about what we missed on a checklist. I would rather spend a lot more time talking about what we learned in an interview. So it's not an either or, but I think it's out of balance in many companies. Let me take a pause for a few seconds. Questions on that or thoughts on that whole interface approach? Make sense? Mm-hmm. Well, then let's do this then. So that's all we have in Blue Help. It's a little bit on the skinny side there. So we're working on a white paper that I think is going to be done by the end of this month. I thought I was going to say year, but I think it could be done by then. And Scott and I are working on this, as well as Colin Palumbo. He's a managing partner at StageGate International. Now, you guys know StageGate International is a company that Bob Cooper founded, 30 years ago or so. And he's pretty much retired now, but Colin is just an absolute whiz at this stuff. So we've been collaborating on this. We're not quite done with this yet, but this white paper is going to talk about 10 steps to boost B2B growth. So I'm not going to read this to you, but I'm going to hit just the high points real quickly. And then as Scott and I were mentioning, when the white paper does come out, we've got your email addresses. We'll go ahead and drop you an email and show you the link you can download this rascal if you're interested in, okay? So here are the 10, there we go. Here are the 10 things we've got in this that we think for B2B companies, it's going to make their stage gate process really come alive. So the first one is to bucket your R&D work. You might think, well, that doesn't have much to do with stage gate, Dan. But what we're saying is you ought to take all of your R&D and put it in one of three buckets. Either it's technology development, science facing, takes money and converts it into knowledge. Product development, that's market facing, takes the knowledge and turns it back into money. Or process development, which is operations facing. And that just helps us convert products into money more efficiently. Now, you may be wondering, well, why do we have to put it in buckets? Because I believe a lot of companies get mixed up with the technology and product development. And if you don't know which bucket you're in, then you can start making, I think, some fairly serious mistakes in your stage gate process. So we know that in some cases, let me ask you this. Have any of you ever been on a technology development project and your boss was asking you for a schedule and you went to your boss and said, really? You're asking me to schedule breakthroughs? I had that unfortunate experience in my career. So we know that mingling these can cause problems, and it can cause some pretty big problems in our stage gate process. Now, here's the thing. If we're doing technology development, that's not market facing. It's not about a new product. It's about developing technology for my company that later on can be used in different markets, hopefully across multiple markets. And so really, when we're talking about product development, that's the only time we should be talking about a stage gate process. Don't use the stage gate process. But here, the moment, so if you're looking at a technology that could span, let's say we got Hank here from Parker. Let's say they're working on a new, I'm making this up, Hank. You're working on a new technology to avoid cavitation in pumps, okay? And gosh, it could be used in all kinds of applications. That's technology development. As soon as Hank says, let's go after pumps for, I don't know, municipal water pumping or whatever it is, okay? Now it's product development and it's market facing. So the point is, when you're in technology development, don't worry about a stage gate. But as soon as you turn your guns on a single market and say, let's try it out here, then we're in product development. So let me take a breath on that. And that's kind of a lot to throw at you guys. Does that make sense? Or you have any questions on that concept of technology development versus product development?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
If you've uncovered a market need, that would be more product facing, but it requires a technological breakthrough. How does that work in the process?
Oh, that's interesting. So you are doing product development. Let's say you're doing blueprinting or something else.
Exactly.
And you uncover some needs and you look on your pantry shelf and say, oh my goodness, we don't have any technology that's going to satisfy this. So yeah, so what that means is you might do a multi-generational new product development if you can satisfy some of the high market satisfaction outcomes today. You might develop a product that does that. And then you're going to put this outcome on your technology scouting list. And then you're going to say, we need to develop this technology. Let's go to universities. Let's look for startups. Let's look for, other things that could develop it. Love your question, Nelson. I was in a business once when I worked inside a company, and we had one outcome that came up across several markets. So we just bumped that rascal up to the top of our technology scouting list, because we knew if we could figure that technology out, it would actually help us in 3 different markets. Does that help with that question?
That does. I'm just trying to figure out how to use the blueprinting process to drive that technology seeking, as opposed to just straight up product development.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So in other words, can you use the technology or use blueprinting for the technology scouting? That's interesting. I have to think about that one a little bit. I'll tell you what you could do. This would be a little bit of an unusual use of the sticky notes, but what I used to do is I used to have a technical advisory board in the company I worked in. And we had several leading professors of universities and others that were really sharp in things. So we would do brainstorming sessions. Let's say our technology, let's say our outcome is we need better cavitation prevention in our pumps. Okay, that's the outcome we need to find. Okay, and now I've got these various professors. I actually used to do brainstorming and use something like the sticky notes to gather all the potential solutions, technology solutions for that. And then we would then go on a hunt for those. So you might use some of the tools in that way, actually. Good. Thank you, Nelson.
Thank you.
You bet. Then let me go here to the second one. So what we want to do is in the front end, it really should all be around market needs. So now here's where it gets a little tricky. So I think I'm guilty of making such a big deal about outcomes versus solutions, and about what a lot of companies used to do, and they still do, is they'd say, we need to develop new products. Let's sit around and come up with really cool ideas, and then maybe go and validate it with the customer. And that usually caused some problems, okay? So I could easily give the impression that all of your ideas for new products need to come out of discovery interviews. And that's actually not true. We do find when a team is very open-minded about the market and what it wants, and they let the discovery interviews give them some really cool ideas to work on, they're very successful. But it can also be that you've decided in your strategic planning, hey, this is an attractive market. We don't know what it wants. Let's go after it. It could be that your field salespeople keep coming back and say, boy, it just seems like customers want this. It could be that you have done some internal ideation, or maybe the technology development you're working on does give you some really interesting possibilities. The inception of your idea can come from anywhere. The thing we like to stress, though, is when you do your discovery interviews, you don't lead with those and say, what do you think about my idea? You go in there and you behave as though you didn't have an idea. So, but don't let anybody say it's an evil thought to have an idea that didn't start in the discovery, okay? But once we get in there, then what we want to do is in the interviews, we really want to be looking for the outcomes, right? So what I'm going to share with you now is a little bit controversial, but I'm having a hard time not using this train of thought. So if you guys think I'm goofy, let me know. We'll change this section of the white paper. I think that when, let's say somebody says, we got an opportunity, however it comes up, okay, they might not have an official stage for this, but at some point, they say, you know what, we want to go look at a certain market. So at this point, it's all about going after a market, okay? And then the point that might be controversial is this. I believe that in that early stage area prior to the business case, we really should be focusing just on market needs. Now, it's controversial because a lot of people have said for a lot of years, you should be advancing commercial and technical feasibility in this front end. And it kind of sounds logical, right? Hey, we'll work before the business case and we'll tidy up the commercial, we'll figure out what customers want, but we'll also kind of just keep working away at this technical thing and trying to get it a little cleaner. Can we figure it out and so forth? Well, here's the thing. If we're not in technology development and we've made a clean break with technology development, and we are strictly in product development, that means we are in a market-facing mode. I'm just having a hard time figuring out, why would I want to do anything in the lab until I know what the market wants? Especially with virtual VOC, if I can get my market needs assessed in 4, 5 months. So anyway, I don't want to be too dogmatic about that, but I do think a lot of companies have wasted a lot of time in the lab in the front when they should have first figured out what the market wants. Any rebuttals or thoughts on that viewpoint? Okay, anyway, it's a little different, but you might go examine your stage gate process and ask, are we spending much time in the lab doing technical stuff before we figure out what the market wants? and it's because maybe we're blurring technology and product development. Okay, so I'm going to jump over here to the third one. So what we want to really do is drive out commercial risk in the front end. That's the goal. And then work on technical risk once we know what the market wants. So that's the idea here. And it's interesting. We've now had 5 decades where the leading cause of failure has been it's been commercial risk. Inadequate market analysis, 45% of projects failed, 42% no market need. So we've been consistent, if nothing else, in our failure mode. And that's why I say, let's spend a few months and figure out exactly what customers want. Okay, the next element here of this, I'm actually having a lot of fun with this. So let me blow this up. How do you lower commercial risk? So this is a thought experiment that Scott and I had a while ago. What would it look like to have really high commercial risk? Well, maybe we just guess what customers want, which is not terribly uncommon, but that would be pretty darn high risk, right? What if I wanted to lower it a little bit? Well, I'll just ask my sales reps what they want. Lower it more. Well, I'll ask one customer, one job function. You can see the here. Now I get to more job functions. Then I go down the value chain. Then I go over the ecosystem. And then I start changing my method of interviewing where the customer takes me the good stuff. And I add advanced probing and trigger methods and tours. And the best one of all is the last one. It's conducting quantitative interviews. So have you ever seen one of these books that's called Choose Your Own Adventure? Well, this is now what we've got is choose your own commercial risk. And so we get to decide how much commercial risk we want to go at. And our belief is, and if you want to talk about this, I can tell you the calculations, but we feel that if you're going to spend about a person year or more in the lab in the product development stage, you really should go all the way through preference interviews in a market case, get the quantitative preference interviews. All right, so that's all about commercial risk, lowering that. Next, let's get some skills, because we just, there's so many skills that people don't have. And so what we want to do is think about, this is what we talked about earlier, right? This is, you can see this is what was in our Blue Help section here. So let's make sure we've got the skills so people know how to do this. Now, this one is a very new thought, and I'm going to run this by you, and I'd love to get your impressions at any point on this. So picture this. There's a stage gate review meeting. 2 teams are going to present their results today. In the morning team, the project gets stopped. And in the afternoon, that team gets stopped as well. Both projects get halted, okay? But here's the interesting thing. In the morning team, the project was stopped because as the team explored it more and understood the market better, they realized it was not a good strategic fit. Or as the team explored it more and they saw what the true total addressable market size was, it just wasn't big enough. Or when they did their market satisfaction gaps, there wasn't anything to sink their teeth into. The customers are happy. So in the morning, the team, the project got killed because the opportunity quality was low. Now, what about the afternoon meeting? Well, in the afternoon, oh, those rascals, they didn't do really any serious interviews. I mean, they talked to a few buddies, the same old, got a little bit of the same old information. Maybe some salespeople gave them some information, didn't do any quantitative research, and they spread this out over like a couple of years. So who knows what the latest is. So that they got told, stop the project, but it got stopped for an entirely different reason. Instead of low opportunity quality, they had low execution quality. So here's my question. How many companies distinguish between a project halted for low opportunity quality versus low execution quality? And it may be happening, I'm just not aware of it. So what we've been thinking about, and this is something we want to spend more time on, and we're going to be doing, especially one of you in the group here, we're already starting to have this conversation. But we can take all the information out of Blueprinter and we can pump it into your stage gate process. And for opportunity quality, you can see what the fit was because all that information is in your market case. We can see what the market attractiveness was because you've got the market satisfaction gaps. Oh, I'm sorry, you've got the size, growth, and so forth. And market needs, you've got the market satisfaction gap. What about execution quality? Yeah, we can show how many outcomes were found. We can show what the probing word count was, how many interviews were done, how long the interviews lasted. I guess insight breadth would be how many companies were interviewed, how many job functions, did we go down the value chain, and then speed. Did this thing take like forever or not? So now our dream is to take the Blueprinter data, which is all now in the cloud, all the APIs are there, pump them into your stage gate process. So now when you start the development stage, you've got this tremendous insight that you never had. Now you just build on it as you learn more. So let me just pause for a minute. Questions on that or observations on this, or what were you smoking, Dan? Anything on this you'd like to discuss? Kind of a new one for us. We're going to be working with this.
Dan,
go ahead. Yeah, please.
It's Reed. Little Rusty just finished a great project through preference interviews. Is this spider diagram still in Excel, or is that?
It's just in my mind, actually, Reed.
Okay.
It's even worse than in Excel. However, in a minute, I'll show you the executive dashboard. You're probably already familiar with it. We actually would like to add, and it won't be right away, it'll be sometime next year. We would actually like to add a fifth view to the executive dashboard, and this would be in that fifth view. The other thing we'd like to do, Reed, is we would like to have all the data exportable into Excel. Some of it is already exported, but what we want to do is kind of digest the data a little bit more, make it a little more processed, and then export it to Excel. And so if somebody's using a homegrown Excel-based stage gate process, they can bring it right in, but then they can also go to our APIs if they have a third-party system and connect the two IT systems together. Does that help, Reed?
Yep, great, thank you. Yep.
You bet.
I didn't want to be missing something that already existed, but it's in your mind. That's a good place to start.
Now, sometimes it's in my mind for 3 or 4 years before it gets out, but I think in this case, we're going to try to move on this next year, okay?
Great, okay, thanks.
Excellent. Other questions on this at all? Okay, So let me finish up the rest of these stage gate points here, are these things. So number 6 is boost your team's efficiency. So, so we want to, there we go, lower that just a little bit so we can actually read a little more. There we go. So there's several ways of doing this. Flex the number of gates. You don't need to have the same number of gates for every project. So that's something to consider. Now, use standardized templates and presentations. Now, I mean, you have to allow for some, customization, obviously, right? But what I find is a lot of companies have their teams do a start from scratch PowerPoint with every new product. And I think they would be absolutely aghast if they could see how much time was wasted on their teams developing these idiosyncratic PowerPoint slides. And not only that, when management looks at these unique PowerPoint decks, they got to start over again. Like, what am I looking at? What does this mean? Help me process this. So standardizing it would save a lot of time and would save a lot of management horsepower as well. And then let each team add in the specific slides they want. So I think that would help a great deal if they could do that. Now, the other one, and this is kind of, if you're doing blueprinting, maybe there's another way of doing it too. Here's the other dream in Dan's head, and that is that a team does its work. And right now it may be frustrating, like, oh, I got to go and I got to enter all this data into our stage gate process. Oh, I forgot to enter that data. It doesn't really do me any good, but I got to do it or I'll get my hand slapped. So that's the mentality. And then I got to do stuff again for my team. What if a team could only had to enter the data once to help themselves out, like in Blueprinter, and knowing that everything they entered in Blueprinter did not have to be re-entered into the stage gate process? That's a huge efficiency booster. So that is our goal, is, the key, not a single keystroke is added unless it helps the team. And then the company in that interface takes all that data off. Number 7, let's think about ways we can accelerate new product development. I think you guys have probably heard me say this before. If you have a new product that launches, $5 million sales, average profit margin, the value of launching 1 month earlier is $8,000 net present value. So we know that when you do have really clear targets as you enter the development stage, like say like a blueprinting market case, you get rid of second guessing, dead end detours, hesitation, and all that. Also, there's some really good work. If you haven't read this, check out Michael George's Fast Innovation. It's not a new book, but if you have an employee at 65% capacity utilization, well, who does that, right? Everybody's probably at like 99%. But if you can give them a little bit of breathing room, they're going to move a whole lot faster than if you absolutely stack them up with work so they can barely breathe. Engaging customers. Now, why did Dan put this in the acceleration part? Well, because a lot of people think about time to market when they should be thinking about time to money. So here's what I mean. Time to market is when you launch it. Time to money is when they start buying it. Now, if you engage your customers all during the front end and development stages, and then say, we got a sample coming, now they're ready for it and they will evaluate it much more quickly. If you don't engage them and surprise them with your new product, good luck getting them to look at it very long. It could be months before they actually evaluate it. Finally, agile. And when you come out, when this comes out, I'll let you look at this more, but this is where we learned quite a bit from our friend Colin over at StageGate International. Waterfall has been traditional. It's great if you have a very predictable thing like building a bridge. If you're doing new product development, it's great to bring in some agile methodology here. And now don't let anybody tell you drop StageGate and replace with agile, but you can put those together. And I won't go into that all right here. I will say this, if you have questions about this and you want an introduction to Colin or others at StageGate, we have really enjoyed working with them. These guys are brilliant. Let us know. We'd be glad to put you in touch with them. Now, the next one, stop pushing the brake pedal. So my goal in white papers is to insult people. So, so some business leaders could accelerate growth by staying home. And, I hate to say it, but it's true. You know, they're doing all of these things like spending freezes and hiring freezes and travel bans and all this stuff. And, you know, they do it to meet the earnings target. That's the first domino. That's the first order effect. But the second order effects are they slows their projects, it delays their revenue, they get poor earnings growth. Now what do? Right? Freeze spending again. So, you know, and I call this first domino fixation. They're just focused on what's going to happen next quarter. And then they don't learn from their mistakes. So I call that first domino amnesia. And I know none of you've experienced any of these innovation friction items here, but you have to use your imagination on that one a little bit, right? Any questions on any of this or observations before I move on and wrap it up?
Okay. I did want to mention something. You talked about standardizing documents for the stage gate process.
Yes, Nelson.
There is a huge trap that the company I used to work for fell into, and that was that the process was developed by a team of not product managers, but project managers. And they ended up with a process that pretty much would sink any project under its own weight. I mean, as an example, Gate 2, the template they came up with a wonderful PowerPoint template, but it was 120 slides. And by the time you were done actually putting it all together, typically it was well over 200 slides.
Whoa.
And it was incredibly difficult for anyone but an absolute seasoned project manager to maneuver through. And it was also none of the upper management wanted to sit for one of those presentations. So it became very, very hard to schedule them. So the standardizing them is wonderful, but you gotta, if you can't do it in a lean way, it's going to kill itself.
Boy, Nelson, that's great. That team that put that together, you know what was in their mind? They were saying, oh, we got to make sure we get everything in here, because if we leave something out and it slips through, then we made a mistake. But if we put 120 slides together and we got everything, nobody can ever fault us on this thing, right? So So as you guys know, in the blueprinting process, the market case is 2 pages front and back for the PDF version, and the slide version's got 6 slides. 6 sections is it, and it's exactly your point, Nelson. Let's get to the stuff that really matters. The other funny thing, and I maybe I shouldn't get into conjecture, but in those 120 slides, I bet they didn't have one that said exactly what the customers wanted based upon quantitative research, which is probably the most important thing that's probably even left off. So what we want to do is get the really important stuff and keep it focused. Love that point. All right, good. Now, just to wrap up then, a couple more points here. If you do have a transformational project, treat that a little differently, okay? In other words, if you're going into, so blueprinting is really good for eliminating most commercial risk. But if you've got a project that you're going into an unfamiliar market, it's unfamiliar technology, I mean, you could have not just commercial risk, you've got technical risk, you've got regulatory risk, you've got operational risk. If there's a lot of other risks there, I would encourage you to look at this approach that we have, we call Minesweeper, okay? Where you generate the assumptions, you rate them for impact and certainty, you investigate them, and so forth. So it's just, I won't get into that right now, but if you have a question on it, let us know, but it's on our website, Minesweeper de-risking. And then finally, let's get some metrics in here. So the vitality index is wonderful, love it, don't throw it away, keep it. However, it's not predictive, it's lagging instead of leading. It's not prescriptive, doesn't tell you how to fix things, and it's not precise. Is it a new product if I change the color of the hose, you know? So what we want is something leading, actionable, benchmarkable, and impactful. And we've got a couple of them, but the one we're bringing out in this white paper is something called the Commercial Confidence Index. Here's what you do. You take all of your spending, let's say your new product development spending is $10 million, okay? And then what you do is you say, okay, which of those projects have some evidence, quantitative, like a market satisfaction gap? Like we know what the market wants. Oh, well, actually 4 of our projects, we did that. And those projects each consumed $1 million. Okay, So we have $4 million of known need project spending divided by $10 million of total. We've got a CCI of 40%. Now, when you first implement this, the person's going to say, but Dan, I have no idea what my CCI is. So you could say, really? So you're not sure what, if the customers want what we're spending millions of dollars of R&D on? Okay. Comes back and goes, okay, now I've got my CCI figured out, but it's 0. And you say, well, that's okay, but let's get a plan in place. What will your CCI be next year? What will be the year after? And maybe they say, well, Dan, it's going to take extra resources to figure out these market satisfaction gaps. Well, that's true, but are we wasting some resources now because we're guessing at what customers want? Could we take some of those resources? So that would be the last point on this. So at any rate, sorry, I probably went too slow on that, but we will let you know when this white paper is out. Should be just a few weeks. And you can let us know what you think about it, and maybe you'll have something to add to it or take out of it. I have one more thing to share real quickly. Any last thoughts on the white paper before I do? So let me share one more thing, and then what we're going to do is just open up to any general questions you've got. So let me just go out here. I'm going to go here, and let me go out to the Blueprinting Center. So I'm going to pick up on something you said, Reed, just a moment ago. So we've got this executive dashboard, and this is something available to all of you. Just if you're not using it yet, just let us know and we'll set it up. It's a free service. And this is where you can look at the pipeline view of all your projects. There's a portfolio view. You can see how your people are doing on practitioner and Blue Belt certification, see who's getting experience in different roles in discovery and preference and so forth. This is where we're eventually, sometime next year, I hope, going to add that spider chart where there will be this opportunity versus execution quality chart. And I don't have it here right now. I doodled on this, but we can actually create a portfolio view so all of your projects can fit on this. Picture you've got 20 projects. There's 20 bubbles, and one axis is execution quality and one axis is opportunity quality. Then you click on one of those bubbles, and then it opens up the spider chart to say why the execution quality was at and why the opportunity quality was at. So let us know if that's of interest to you. We're eventually going to build that into here. We could also pump the data over to you, and you could build it yourself. We don't really care how you use our data. You're doing blueprinting. The more you can put all this wonderful trove of front-end insight into your stage gate, the stronger your innovation process will be, and the more excited we'll be, and very eager to help you with that. Okay, I know you guys thought I wouldn't finish, but that's what I have on StageGate. Questions or observations on anything with StageGate before we open it up for general questions? All right, everybody good? Scott, did we get any questions coming in on the chat in general that we should address first?
We do not have any in the chat.
Okay, very good. Well, I'll open it up to any general comments. Sometimes we have none, and we're just delighted for you guys to come for whatever part of our rambling you're welcome, you would like to join. But is there any question that you've had come up with your interviews, your market cases, your management, anything you'd like to discuss at this point?
Maybe I'll go back to the technology versus product versus process development. We definitely have a case where it's blended. It's it's kind of all lumped together. Would you prioritize it? It feels like the first step is make sure process is different from technology and product. But one, would you prioritize how to bucket those three? And then two, any advice on just organizational change, how to make that happen?
Yeah, great. So I think you're spot on, Zach. I think the process development is pretty easy to spot. we're going in, we're increasing our line speed, we're, improving something that's already there. It's a product that's already been developed, right? So I would make sure we're really clear on that. That should be a pretty easy one to bucket and keep track of the spending on that. And then I think what I would do is I would spend a little time thinking about product versus technology development and come up with your rules. Now, I should have thought of this. Hang on one second here. Let me go out to our main website. We just this last week published a new set of videos, okay? So I'm going to go out to the video series here. And now I may be a little bit fumbly. We need to put a search function in here. Scott, if you know where it is before I do, you holler. But I think, hang on one second here. Let me see if I can find it real quickly. There we go. Okay. Video number 41, Scott, Zach, and here's where I was at. Let me go back to show you where I was at. I was out main new product. I'm sorry, VAIMinstitute.com. I went to Insights and I went to Video Series. And if you go to number 41, this is where we spend a little bit more time talking. I'll just show you the page on this. This is where we spend a little bit more time talking about technology development versus product development. And so I think your organization is going to need to come up with rules to determine when is it this and when it is that. Here is my favorite rule. My favorite rule is this. If what I'm working on in the lab has strong potential to be used across multiple markets in my company, could be multiple divisions, could be multiple groups, or it could just be multiple market segments, right? If it has that potential, then I need to keep it in technology development area and keep working on that, okay? And what I'm doing at that point is I'm filling up my pantry shelf with capability. Now, at a certain point in time, nobody's going to be happy if it just always stays on the pantry shelf and never earns money for my company. So a lot of times at that point, we say, I think this technology is developed well enough. And then we say, let's pick one market segment to go after because we're going to test it. Well, which market segment are we going to pick? We're going to pick the most attractive one we can find. Okay, so we're going to pick an attractive market segment. Now we have turned the corner from technology development to product development because we are now market facing. So that's a distinction. Now, what if we go in that market and it's a big flop? Now we have to ask another question. Did we flop because of the innate technology won't work anywhere? Or did it flop because that market doesn't want what this technology delivers? If the answer is the first, then we're done with our technology development. If the answer is the second, that was a market specific failure point, then we're going to probably pick a second market segment and go after that. But to me, the big turning point from technology to product development is when I go from potential for my whole company to let's see if we can make customers in this market happy. Is that helpful at all, Scott, Zach? Okay. All right. And let me know when you do this because not many companies have done this. And if you want to get into it and get in the weeds, let me know and I'll be glad to join you guys because this is fairly fresh thinking. Let me just put it that way. Okay. Not a lot of companies do this. Great question. Any other questions? All right. Oh, by the way, one last thought, and then I will be done. If you come out here, the rest of you to Insights and Video Series, you can do what I did, which is poke around for something fun, but you could also do the 10-week plan. You'll be subjected to a new video from me every day for 10 weeks. Now, these are only 2 minutes long, so it's not too painful. Or if that's just like, no, I can't handle that. That's just asking too much. You can sign up for the 50-week plan and get a new chapter every week. So I'll leave you with that. Okay, last call. Any more questions before we get on to our weeks ahead of us?
Dan, we have a question in the chat. I'll just read it. Can you explain how to tie voice of customer to the customer journey?
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. So the customer journey can apply to many different things, can it? Sometimes the customer journey is, we think about it as in the marketing. How do they find us? How do we connect with them, and so forth? But there's lots of customer journey. The other customer journey is well, let's deal with that one first. So when you do, let's talk about the marketing part of the customer journey for just a little bit, because that's the most popular use. So when you do good blueprinting, well, let me start again. When the customer journey, when they are looking for help, what's the first thing they almost always do? They go and they do an internet search, right? And then they see what's out there and they dig around a little bit. And studies show that by the time they actually reach out to you and make contact with you, they've made 60% of their buying decision, because in today's customer journey, and it may even be higher today, it's a few years ago, today's customer journey, it starts with searching on the internet. And then after that, they get a little more help from you. So when they are searching, one of the most important things you can do in the customer journey is be assured that when they put in a Google search term, that they find you. And I'm talking about really high up on the first page. Well, a key to doing that is knowing what the search term is they're going to put in. So what you want to do is in blueprinting, we now have this in the cloud, as you guys know, and you can go through all of your projects, or you, oops, sorry, did that wrong. Not hang out a second. You can go and do this search function here, and you can search through many of your projects and look for certain keywords. Try out some search terms and see what's coming up in those sticky notes. Whatever language your customers used in their interviews is going to be the same language they use when they're going out to search. So if they use the word cavitate or cavitation or something because they're looking for a pump, or anti-cavitation, or maybe there's another term for it, they wouldn't even know. Do your searching through your sticky notes and get that terminology, and then let your search engine optimization experts tune your web pages and all of your web-based material to that particular search phrase. I probably spent too much time on that. But first of all, from a standpoint of marketing, does that make sense, tying the customer journey to your blueprinting insights? The last one, I'll be quicker about this one. There's also a customer journey that you can do using the trigger maps. So I love this one here. When you're in your interviews, talk about, let's say you make packaging, you're talking to Amazon, go through the whole process. You guys receive the blanks, you inspect them, you store the blanks. It could even start earlier. How do you know when you need a new blank? Where do you go? What kind of search do you do? What salespeople do you contact? So you could go way back to the decision-making process and put that in the beginning of your outcomes map, and then use that and explore that with the customers in your interviews. So this can be very powerful. This is kind of like a customer journey that you could adapt for whatever uses you want. Scott, I probably overdid that one, but that was a great question. So thank you, whoever put that one in.
I was thinking similarly. Usually when the customer journey, when I hear that term, it's often about the buying cycle.
Yeah,
from when you begin with an awareness that you have, a need, all the way through the last thing is making the purchase decision, and you continue it on through containing support afterwards, sort of wherever you want to sort of declare the process to be over.
And if you've got blueprinting finished for your new product, you know which outcomes they're most eager to see fixed. So those are going to come up the most often. And by getting the actual verbatim sticky notes, you know the exact terminology. So you are in a very great position. So don't divorce that front end from your product launch and the customer journey, I guess, is our bottom line.
One thing I might throw on top of that is when you're scoping a project, we usually think of scoping a project around product development, right? So you go find investigate a problem out in the market or whatever. But you could also, and I've seen this done pretty well, you could also do a project just on the buying cycle of your product. In this case, though, in the first case, like the product's a variable because you're going to understand problems and you're going to develop a new product. In the second case, the product is really fixed. The products are what they are. Now you begin with essentially what are the challenges a customer has when they are, which is think about the process of buying a car, something most everybody on this call has done, well, how does that process begin and what happens next and how do you evaluate alternatives and et cetera. So you could also do a project just around that buying cycle.
Exactly. Your new quote unquote product is making it really easy for customers to do business with you.
Right.
All the way through service and everything. Was there another question? I think somebody was about to ask one earlier before I went off on a tangent.
Yes, I had one. One of your goals was to treat transformational projects differently. I was just curious if you could expand upon that a little bit.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. So let me go back over here. We only do 3 things at the AIM Institute. The one well, blueprinting. One is product launch. The third one under services is Minesweeper. This is something we've been working on for about 5 or 6 years. And I would say only in the last year has it really come together. You might want to check out this short video. We're having incredible success with this. But basically what happens is you get your team together. Let's say you've got, the Ansoff matrix, maybe you're going into new technology or new markets, something kind of scary. Well, what you do is you get all the assumptions that must be true for your project to succeed. And we've learned for market facing, you should bucket those in 3 categories. You see there. And then I'll zoom in a little bit more on this. And then the second one, individually, we rate each of these assumptions for what's the impact if it's not true, and how certain are we? And then we have a group, the team then rates them. So there's some really interesting things we've learned about how to avoid groupthink and get a very fair assessment. Now we're interested in the ones down in the yellow and red area here, the danger, caution, things that are high impact assumptions that could really hurt our project, and the certainty is relatively low. Then what we do is we investigate those. So everybody on the team gets an assignment, and we usually have typically 50 to 100 assumptions, and we want to get them out of the red and yellow and increase the certainty on those. And once we get them in the green zone, we're done with them. And then we have this really cool reporting to pick on Nelson's, pick up on his point. It's just 2 pages. We're going to let management know how we're doing driving out uncertainty on this thing. So check that out. It's under the services page here, Minesweeper. And then under training, project de-risking, we have a public workshop. The next one's not till November 18th. It's usually about every month and a half, 3 hours. It's like $195. If you want to come to it, just let Scott or me know. We'll send you a free pass as a thank you for coming to our Monday masterclass. And you could sit in this and kind of would go through a simulation, basically. That was kind of a fast overview, but does that give you a sense for what this process is?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Let us know if you have questions on it. We can dig deeper. Good. Any other questions?
Thank you for keeping it to 2 pages.
You bet, Nelson. We've both been on the other side.
I like that whole word search function you talked about a few minutes ago. Has anyone talked about being able to auto-generate a word cloud from that?
That's also in my mind, like Wordle. We haven't done it yet. But I love those things. And that is something on our to-do list. We just have such a long to-do list, it might be a while. However, here's what you could do. You're kind of triggering a thought here. You could come in here, you could do your searches. Well, okay.
Yeah, the problem is picking ones that occur a lot becomes tricky.
Yeah, that's the thing. This would be a little, as I'm thinking about this, would be a little time consuming because once you get to your interview, okay, let's say you're in the Amazon interview, what you can do is you can export all of your notes to Word, okay? And then once it's in Word, then it's not a difficult thing to send it over to Wordle and do that sort of thing. But you probably have to you know, if you did 8 interviews in this market segment, you'd have to export this 8 times, combine them, and then do a Wordle. But still,
that came up.
Yeah.
That came up before because I've exported to Excel to do some analysis, and it would be nice to be able to export all of them all at once.
Hey, Scott, I don't think that's on our to-do list. Can we add that one on there? Do a mass export. That sounds like something that we could probably put up in our main menu here. And instead of having onesie, twosie export, that's actually a great idea.
Yeah.
And then we could, that's where we'd add the Wordle on, wouldn't it? The analysis.
Cool.
Great, Nelson. Thank you.
You're
Nelson, you're going to see a little something extra in your next paycheck for that idea. That was so good.
Hey, I'd like to see more functionality. That's great.
Yeah, that's what we appreciate that. Scott and I kid about it. You know, if the software is working for people, it's because people like you and others have given us great suggestions. I tell people my main job is to show up and pay attention. We got some really bright clients. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Any last questions, comments, ideas? Well, thanks, everybody. I firmly believe that sometime in the future, people will look back and look at the way many companies are managed and say, really? It just doesn't make sense. We're actually doing things to stunt our own growth. All right. Thanks, everybody. Always a pleasure spending time with you guys. Let us know if we can help with anything, okay?